All right, man. I'm back at it again. Recovery209. Bernie here. I'm gonna have a special guest on, man. This individual right here is from the Way to Recovery. It's an individual that I'm definitely inspired by. Uh, he gives back so much what was freely given to him, man. And I'm gonna let him tell his story, his experience, his strength, his hope, and hoping that someone will get something from it. I wanted to start this uh, so that other individuals could hear other people's perspectives. Addiction is addiction, but sometimes the message could be different. And so I wanted to get this guest on and let him share with y'all what it's like. So let me get him on right now. Again, I'm gonna attempt again. I appreciate y'all coming back on, man.
Oh,
There it is.
yeah, flip it around. There we
A
go.
little bit of technical difficulties, but it's all good, man. How's the cat? How's it?
We made it happen, brother. We made it happen.
I know, right? So
Yep.
what's up, Travis? I got Travis here from the Way to Recovery. Uh, like I shared, Travis, you're definitely an individual, bro, that inspires me. Um, I know a little bit about your story. Uh, but I just love, bro, how you give back something that was freely given to you. You know what I mean? And you're vulnerable about it. So
That's what we do.
yeah, definitely. So how I want to start this, Travis, I just want to, shoot from the hip, bro. Tell me about your experience, your strength, and your hope, and but the first question I have for you, bro, is what's your sober date? Your name and your
So,
sober date.
so my clean and so I got two days, but I just go off my clean and sober day. I haven't drank in 7 years, but I started doing the California sober thing down the line. I was going through a time of depression, and but my clean and sober date is May 25th, 24. So I got a little bit over 18 months clean and sober by the grace of God. It's one day at a time, but you know how we do it.
Yeah, Travis. Well, congratulations on that, man. Can you give me a little bit of what was your childhood like, man?
Man, see, my childhood, so yeah, my dad was an alcoholic. My mom was she was like a normie. I had a really good mom, and my dad was kind of an abusive alcoholic. So I had the best of both worlds. I had the good mom and the dad that suffered from the disease that you and me suffer from, man. And
Right.
so my house was pretty much kind of broken, man. Like plates of food going up against the wall was a normal occurrence in my house.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I was seeing my dad drunk all the time. That was pretty normal. Like, I forgot like how old I was, but there was a year where my dad was like in jail for a whole year for like stacking up DUIs. And I
Mm.
remember a lot of those times. I think I blacked out a lot of my childhood just because of trauma and stuff. But yeah, I remember as a kid always saying that I was never going to end up like my dad. You know what I mean? And I end up like a splitting image just like him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
As
yeah.
a result of this disease.
Yeah, definitely that definitely tends to happen, because we all want to be like our our fathers, we always want to be about like the individuals around us. So I could definitely relate to that, bro. You know? Um, do you remember the first time you took that first drink or used that first substance?
Oh yeah, man. I was at one of the family parties, and back in the day, I mean, I'm pretty sure it still goes on now, where they had family parties, and the liquor
Yeah.
would be out there in the open, you know what I mean, for the taking, pretty much. And
Uh-huh.
I went to this one party with my family, and me and the other kids I was hanging out with, like in the kind of like the rec room, you know what I mean, where they got like pool tables, instruments, or whatever. One of the kids thought it was a good idea to go, sneak some beers from the coolers. You know what I mean? So we would go in there,
Yeah.
we'd grab some beers, and the one thing I remember is I remember the feeling, the feeling that alcohol produced. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I was an angry kid, man. I was a wound up, angry kid. I had a lot of anger from my childhood, growing up. And it was like when I put that beer to my mouth, like when I was a little baby, I think like probably like 8 or maybe even younger than that. You know what I mean? I remember hearing a story that I took a sip of beer and spit it out, but when I finally like swallowed that sip, you know what I mean, and took a
Yeah.
couple more and I felt the effect, it was the effect that got me. It was like I
Mm-hmm.
was able to just, put my shoulders down for the first time, and everything that was going on up here kind of just, you know what I mean? It didn't bother me anymore, you
You kind
know?
of you got numb in a sense,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was exciting though. It was like not only like it didn't numb out my thoughts, but it was like it opened up this new life, right? This new world.
Mm-hmm.
It was exciting at first.
Yeah.
Like, when I think about it, like all of us, we probably had some good times in our active addictions, but at some point, we crossed that line of no return. Like where it went from having fun, to these exciting times. Maybe some dangerous times, but then it became like a part where you cross that line. And it's like, dude, I drink just to maintain. When I wake up, I got to drink, you
Yeah.
know?
So I definitely could relate to that, man, because same thing with me, man. When I started, everybody was doing it. So I thought that was the norm. I got that instant gratification. Not knowing what it was going to lead to, and so I could definitely relate with you, Travis. Can you give me a little bit? Can you dive a little deeper? Like, what was your typical day like when you were out there using or out there drinking? When you were around your peers, your family, or however it is?
So yeah, man. Depending on like what part of my recovery, because I got to a point, where I had to wake up and drink, bro. Like, some people wake up, they pray, they meditate, they take a shower, they brush their teeth, they eat. You know
Well,
what I
let's
mean?
dive in. Let's dive into that. What?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and
So,
just dive
I
into it.
became, I became the kind of alcoholic where when I woke up, if I didn't have any alcohol from the night before, I had to run down to the liquor store and get more.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And this became a progressive thing. You know what I mean? I didn't start out like this. So, it started out with me drinking on the weekends with my friends. You know what I mean? I was like, like they say a binge drinker or whatever, but it's just like, oh, no, on the weekends we got hammered. We had a good time. We went to shows, concerts, parties, man, lived that reckless life, running amok. You know what I mean? A lot of fights, a lot of violence, a lot of fun. You know what I mean? That's what I grew up on. And that soonly progressed to me working in the bar scene, security in the bar scene. So I found a job that fit my lifestyle. And when I started working in the bar scene, and after my
Yeah.
father died, I feel like that's when my alcoholism really took off. Instead of just drinking on the weekends, I was drinking any chance I could get, and it was progressive, like, it was definitely progressive. Like, like when I would go to work, I wouldn't drink until after I got off work, and my
Yeah.
disease got so bad that it went from like me waking up drinking before work to the point where I was getting soda and getting like shots and pouring it in my soda and like I'm drinking on the door at the bar while I'm checking your IDs. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That
So,
was your daily routine. Hey, I heard you say something about when you someone died, right?
oh yeah, my dad
Uh,
passed away from this disease.
so when that individual passed away, I'm sure that individual was um how helped you throughout your life, whether it was good or whether it was bad, right? But right there is grief. You felt like when he passed away that you just went a little bit harder in your addiction?
Oh, most definitely, man.
Uh-huh.
I use that as an excuse too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
That fueled my addiction. You know, all that shame, all that guilt. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Because I played a huge part in that, man. Because like me and my dad, I talked about my childhood with him, but my dad was a good dude, man. It's just this addiction, and when I started drinking, we became the best of friends, man. We became drinking buddies. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we
yeah.
finally figured him out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You say that old saying that you don't know a person until you walk a day in their shoes, man. I feel like drinking with my dad, it was like, man, I finally understood, but I didn't really understand until, after he passed away and my alcoholism took off to the level that he was at. You know what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
then I remember that looking back, I remember, when I was a little kid, and I saw how my dad was when he was drunk. And I'm like, man, I'm never going to be like my dad. And sure enough, man, as my addiction progressed, dude, I was exactly like my dad, bro. Like it
Definitely,
was
definitely.
crazy, you know?
Yeah, man, I could definitely relate to that, you know. I was going through that same thing, man, where my dad, he wasn't always in my life, man, but I would hear stories about him and I wanted to be just like him, man. You know? Um, but it's hard to be just like someone when that someone is not physically there. You get what I'm saying? And for you, man, I see where you're coming from because your dad was physically there. But like you said, when you guys started drinking, you guys started building a different bond, you know?
Exactly.
And then when he passed away, man, same thing with me. My grandpa, he passed away, and it was something where like it was just an excuse for me to go harder in my addiction. You know what I mean? Um, and go out there and run amok in the streets because my grandpa's not here no more. He passed away. Who's gonna tell me anything? And so I could definitely relate to that, man. Where'd you grow up exactly, man?
So I grew up in San Leandro, California, right in between Oakland and Hayward.
Uh huh.
Cross the bridge from San Francisco. San Leandro is kind of like, I like to say it's like the center of the bay. Like I'm 20 minutes away from, well, I'm like a minute away from Oakland because it's literally right next door. Like 20 minutes away from Berkeley, 20 minutes away from San Francisco. 40 minutes away from San Jose.
Uh
Like
huh.
it's like in like the middle.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Was you grew up where in the 90s, right?
yeah. I was born 1990, so yeah, I pretty much ran amok in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
That's when
Um,
the fun began, I guess you could quote unquote say.
so after you were in your addiction, and when did you start realizing like this was a problem? Was there like trouble with the law? Um, where besides wanting to use every single day, was it affecting not just you? Was it affecting your family? Was it affecting your relationships? Can we dive a little bit into that?
Oh yeah, big time, man. Yeah, I've gotten lucky. Definitely gotten lucky, man. That's all I got to say. This disease, broken bones because of this disease. I've been behind bars for a night by the grace of God, only a night. There's times where I got lucky, man. Charges were dropped. You know what I mean? Where I got the knock on that cell, like, Travis, you're good to go. And I'm just like, whoa, dude. Like, those things actually, like anyone who, like, dodged a bullet, would come out of the jail and be like, man, like, I need to change my ways. But me, it was like a celebration, like, Every time I get let out of the drunk tank when it was supposed to be something greater than that, but the charges were somehow magically dropped, my idea
Hmm.
was, oh, let me go to the store and get a bottle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was in a lot of codependent relationships that, I wasn't fully present there for because my addiction came first. So I had, I would have girlfriends, but I would spend more time at the bar than with them. You know what I mean? I was,
Uh-huh.
worked in the bars. I lived in the bars. See, I was the kind of person, there's two types of alcoholics. There's the alcoholics that like to isolate and drink by themselves, and there's the alcoholic that likes to drink with other alcoholics. It kind of helps you feel more comfortable, right?
Right,
Like,
right, right. Definitely.
maybe I don't got a problem if, like, it helps you, like, you start taking other people's inventory. Like, look at this guy over here. I'm not bad like him. You know what I mean? I was
Hmm.
the type of alcoholic, but I was a type of alcoholic, bro, where I would come into the bar hungover, and I would sit there and I wouldn't talk to anyone, right? But as
Hmm.
soon as I got a couple drinks in me and the hangover went away, I was like the life of the party, bro.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah.
always had to be around. But obviously, I was the one when the party's over. I'm still drinking. You know what I mean? So when the bar shut down, everyone's like over it. Like, I'm going back to my house and I'm cracking open another bottle. I'm busting out the ashtray and I'm listening to music.
Right, right. The bar scene, um, because I've been in the bar scene, bro. I know what it's like. Um, and did did you ever dibble and dabble into other substances so that so the mind will tell you, you know what, if I do this, maybe I could drink a little longer. You know what I mean?
Most definitely, man. I was definitely a fan of the booger sugar, man.
There you go. There
Because,
you go. Talk that talk, baby.
because it kept you up, man. It kept you
Hmm.
able to drink. You wouldn't pass out on it. You know what I mean? And it made like
Yeah.
the drip from it. I don't want to glorify this or anything, but the drip left such a nasty taste in your mouth that when you sip that ice cold beer, it tasted better. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
just the insanity of that, man. But yeah, I definitely dabbled in that, man. I think a couple times I got laced with crystal meth. I've done meth. I've like couple times on accident, bro, and that shit took me on a whole entire different spiral. I'm talking about not sleeping for 3 or 4 days, losing my mind, having those suicidal thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, just somehow holding it together. I don't even know how, bro. Like, just like,
Mm.
if anyone's experienced with meth, man, like, dude, that is a devil drug right there, man. Like, dude, honestly, the reason I never became like a crystal meth addict is that it scared me, bro.
Hmm.
Standing, and just having all those delusional thoughts in your head, and like
Yeah.
suicide and all that, bro. Like, alcohol shut that thing off. You know what I mean? I was able to pass that. I wouldn't go to sleep. I would pass out when I drank, right? But I mean, at least, I'd be out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Were you the type of individual where, like, let's say, um, you know, I'm so drunk, so I need to bring myself down a little bit. So I do this, or I'm feeling down, so I could bring myself up. See, because I was the type of individual, bro, where um when I would be so drunk, bro, I would do some drugs, right? Cocaine to be exact, and I would feel ready to go, and I would be so wired, bro. And in order for me to come back down, I would take some pills. You know what I mean? So in my mind, it was always leveling out, and it really wasn't. You know what I mean?
Ah, man, I
Uh,
was a train wreck, bro. I was a blackout drinker, dude. I drank whatever you put in front of me, and if there was Coke, I'm doing it until it's gone, and then we're calling up the dealer and we're getting another bag. You know what I mean? Like, I
yeah.
wanted to go full, full mode. Like, just
So
all
through
out.
all, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just all out. I was a train wreck, brother. Definitely, man.
Yeah, yeah. Um, slowly and surely it gets like that, you know, and because it's not like that all in the beginning, you know. I'm sure, Travis, that you have a lot of, you know, good times, you know, what we think is good times, you know. We're living on top of the world, we're getting girls, we get a little bit of money, we're in the bar scene. But what about when responsibility starts hitting you, bro?
Man, I didn't think too deep in that when I was in my active addiction. Somehow I was magically able to hold on to my job. Somehow, I don't know. Like I said, I was in codependent relationships, so like the women that I dated were able to put up with me. You know what I mean? Like they tried to change me, definitely. I would be
Hmm.
in relationships where they'd hide the bottle from me and all that. You know what I mean? Somehow, like my life was reckless, dude. But somehow, some way, I'm maintained. I was able to hold on to my job. You know what I mean? I was somehow able to hold on to my sanity. Even
Hmm.
though like, I was blacking out, man. And it's like, it wasn't like I was suicidal, bro. But it was like the way my behavior. You want to be able to tell the difference, man. Like the way I went. Balls to the wall, man. Like, like I shouldn't be here, bro. I'm like a cat that has far exceeded 9 lives, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Talking
yeah.
about waking up out of blackouts with like the driver passed out running red lights. You know what I mean? Drivers going on the wrong side of the freeway, bro. Just all that craziness, dude, that comes with it, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Car packed like a clown car with 20 of my homies. We're all drunk and on drugs, bro. And the homie driving is going like 100 miles an hour on the freeway. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right,
dude,
right.
this is kind of normal stuff, bro.
Just being destructive, running amok, running, you know, off of drugs and alcohol, right?
Exactly.
Was there ever a point in your life when any individuals came to you and told you, "Hey, Travis, like I think you got a problem, man"?
See, no, that's the thing, like, I don't know. It's funny too because when I got sober, and I told a lot of people, like, man, we didn't even think you had a problem. You know what I mean? I don't know if I was able to just hold it together like that. Or,
So did you
you got to remember, all my friends were other alcoholics and addicts, bro, active alcoholics and addicts. So, you know
you
what I
never
mean?
you never seen their life going down and maybe thinking like, "Fuck, that could be me."
Now, see, I think I blocked out those warnings, man, because, it's
Uh-huh.
like, how we got a disease that tells us we don't have a disease, right?
Right, right, right.
That's the big part. But then the other thing is, so like when I got sober, man, like when I knew that I needed to get sober, like it was life or death, man, like I thought my life was over. Because like I said, even though I was enslaved by alcohol and drugs, it was like I was chasing that high, I was chasing that fun. You know what I mean? Like I never wanted the party to end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
So you made it look good on the outside, but deep down on the inside, let's just say you were imprisoned in your own mind.
oh yeah, most definitely, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
dude,
yeah.
we're having a lot of fun, man. But like, dude, when the fog clears and you wake up the next morning,
Uh-huh.
everyone's going to work and stuff. Like luckily for me, I worked in the bar scene, so I don't got to go there till later on. But dude, I'd wake up like with the worst anxiety, just with my head just barking at me, dude. Like just this, I think just all those unhealed like traumas and thoughts that I'm blocking out with my addiction. You know what I mean? And they're just barking at you. And my only way to know how to shut them up was to go and drink more. You know what I mean? So that's what
Yes,
I became
yes.
dude. And like I really felt like, like towards the end, I really felt like I was in prison, bro. Like I would like wake up like with dread, and I would just be miserable, dude. And I'm like, man, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I knew I was an alcoholic, bro, but I didn't know that I could do anything about it. Like I thought I was gonna die in my disease, like my dad. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I just endured the suffering, as we do, man. I just kept going and going, and I'm dying inside, bro. Like some nights I thought I was gonna die from having like alcohol withdrawals.
Yeah, yeah.
There was nights where I literally, had to sit there and have the bottle on my dresser and just sit there with the irritable, discontent, you know what I mean? Restlessness. I couldn't sleep, just feeling my body going through the motions, and I would have to get up and take a shot or two just to calm down and maybe get like a nap in. You know, I couldn't get a full 8 hours, bro, because I was just going through it. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could definitely relate to that, man. Hey, I heard you talk about, the anxiety, the depression, and mental health in a sense, right?
Yep.
How where was it in your life when you started realizing about anxiety, the depression, and whatever else was going through your mind, Travis? Because that's deep, bro. I like to touch bases on that because us men, we're not vulnerable about it. You know what I mean? I used a lot of drugs and a lot of alcohol to suppress the anxiety, the depression, because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. You know what I mean? And I definitely know there's a lot of individuals out there who do the same thing, who can relate and to understand, man, that they're not alone. You know what I mean? So can we touch a little bit on the anxiety, the depression, or the mental health, you know?
Oh yeah, big time. So anxiety, like, so the first time I even realized what, like, I thought what anxiety was,
Mm-hmm.
was I had my first panic attack. I was with a buddy of mine. Uh, let's just say like over the bridge, right?
Right.
And I was chilling at his house, you know, and he was getting prescribed Adderall, and we were drinking, and he was doing lines of Adderall, and I'm like, man, let me get some of that, you know what I mean? And we were doing
Uh-huh.
Adderall, bro. We were like up all night, dude, like just wired on Adderall. And when I left his house and I took the bus over to the bridge the next day, bro, it was like right when we were about to get over the bridge, dude, I started feeling this panic in me. Like I thought I was having like a heart attack, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting off the bus and just like hyperventilating, and some lady called the ambulance on me, dude. And I ended up going to the hospital. You know what I mean? And I don't know if they even really told me much, dude. It was like, what did you do? And I told them, you know, I did a bunch of Adderall the night before and was drinking. And I didn't sleep. And I think
Yeah,
they gave me
yeah.
something to calm me down, bro. And I forgot, like, cause you know how they have your records, and they like it's on your record. Like I think they said that I abused some kind of
Substance.
fentanyl, yeah, like substance abuse or whatever. Like I abused something, but you know they probably they didn't give me the whole implication on like what I had gone through, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of my anxiety, you know, it stems from like, dude, like drinking, doing drugs, not sleeping, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like just covering up all these wounds that are inside of me that are just screaming out.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? And then after had that first panic attack, bro, anytime I felt my heartbeat, like, you know, from doing coke or whatever, like it would trigger that, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And panic attacks became a normal thing, bro. And but you know what? I've realized that if I drank, the panic attacks would go away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro. I know what you mean.
So I was self
Um,
medicating, bro.
and that consistently happened over and over again.
Yeah, dude. Waking up with the dread, you know, I'd wake up and I'd be anxious. I'd be like anxious mixed with depressed, you know, because I had blacked out the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm dealing with the dread that I got to get up and go to work in a couple hours. But you know, then it became a thing, right? I hold it, but I got to have enough time to go down and get a drink. You know what I mean? I got to go get a couple drinks from the liquor store, and if I can, you know, I got to get something to eat. You know what I mean? Like, and I want to be able to eat. Like, I don't know what my body wouldn't be able to eat until I had a couple drinks in me, bro. Like, I had to drink just to function, dude. Like, if I was like hungover, you know, going through withdrawals, like, dude, I had no appetite, man. So I literally had to get a couple drinks in to calm my anxiety and my withdrawals. Then I would like start getting hungry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. At those times, did you? I heard you mention something about suicidal thoughts, right? Because you're not the only one that goes through that, Travis. I went through that so many nights, bro. Like, but the thing is, what I realized, man, it's not that I wanted to die, it's that something inside of me wanted to die. You know what I mean? And I would sit there and I would be in a fetal position, bro, and I'd be crying to God and I'd be telling him like, help me. I would isolate. I didn't want the world to see me, bro. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't know how to talk about my anxiety. I didn't know how to talk about my depression. I didn't know how. I thought I was so alone, bro. You know what I mean? I couldn't be open up about this stuff that because the world makes you feel less than as a man because you're going through these different emotions, and it's easy for me to give you the bottle. It's easy for me to give you the bag. It's easy to tell you, you know what? Don't even fucking worry about that, Travis. Come on, bro. Let's go to the bar. You know what I mean?
Most definitely, dude.
So I could definitely relate with the suicidal thoughts, bro. It's scary, man. It's scary because um it's like they would come and they would go. They would come and they would go, you know? And my mind would tell me, take that drink, you know, because if the enemy can get your mind, your hand will follow. You know what
Oh,
I mean? And and um and I was scared, bro. Like I didn't even want to tell like, you know, my grandmother or any of them because I didn't want to scare them, you know what I mean? Because they're already going through um whatever they're going through dealing with me. You know what I mean? So I could definitely relate with that. What do you feel like was your lowest point, your rock bottom, pretty much?
So yeah, bro. So I could pertain to a lot what you were talking about, man, with anxiety, depression, but I was maintaining, bro. I think drugs and alcohol gave me the ability to maintain, right? Just to maintain, just to live another day. Like I was like, I wasn't. It's weird, dude. Like it's almost like you feel like in your addiction, you would be more than likely to do something. But like maybe by me blacking out and doing drugs, I was hoping that I wouldn't wake up the next day, but I would, and I continue just to maintain instead of just like end it all. But anyways, my bottom. So like one of the girlfriends that I had, who's like she was the only one who told me that I was effing up, that I had a problem. She was the one that would hide the bottles from me, right?
Right.
And she pretty much was all like, "Yeah, if you don't stop this, I'm gonna leave you." You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Somehow, some way, I don't even know how I did it, bro. I was able to stop drinking. I did the marijuana maintenance thing, and completely bone dry, sober for like 3 months, dude. Like changing absolutely nothing about me. Not going to like meetings or recovery. You know what I mean? Yeah, dude. Like just going about, like still hanging out at the bars, drinking soda, drinking NA beers. You know what I mean? And changing absolutely nothing about myself. And
Right, right,
yeah, we got into an argument one time and we broke up. And as soon as we broke up, the one thing that was keeping me away from the bottle, I guess you could say she was my higher power at the time, right?
right.
She's gone, bro. We broke up. So what do you think I did? I went to that bar and I'm like, let me get a beer.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy was bartending. Like it was funny because I was already at the bar drinking NA beers, right?
Right, right.
And dude, I'm talking to my buddy like I'm sober, dude. I've been sober for 3 months, dude. You know what I mean? Just all this BS, right? And I get that
Mm-hmm.
call, right? And then we get into it and break up. And now I'm going over there. I'm over here like, like half an hour ago telling him how good my life is going. Then boom, you know what I mean? I'm like, bro, let me get like a real beer. And
Yeah.
I remember he gave me that look of disappointment, And
Right.
he's like, do you want to go outside and talk about this? And I said, no, give me a beer. And then
Uh-huh.
I drank that beer, bro, and that obsession came back. But I was so just like, like, how do you say it? Like, just seeing him disappointed, knowing that I probably let him down. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
anything, I let myself down, right? And
Right.
so I left. I left and I went to another bar and started drinking, bro. And literally, this was out in Fremont, dude. That night, I did like literally like a road trip from
Uh-huh.
Fremont to Oakland, bro, stopping all these different bars, bro. hit all the way down from Fremont down to Union City to Hayward, San Leandro, and then somehow I wound up in Oakland, bro. And dude, the obsession came back, bro. And like literally the next day I woke up, well, I blacked out. I was at my friend's house in Oakland. I woke up and I'm like, what the heck happened? You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
but then that obsession came back, bro. So the only thing that was on my mind at that point was a drink. So I left my buddy's house without locking his door. You know, he lives in like the hood of like East Oakland, right? So I
Right.
leave the house, bro. I go down to the bar. I'm drinking. My buddy calls me. He's like, where you at, man? And I'm like, oh, I went to the bar. He's like, did you lock the door? I'm like, I'm not sure. He's like, what do you mean you're not sure, bro? Like, you know where I live, dude. So he kind of like, he blew up on me, bro. I felt so bad. So I went all the way back. And then luckily his roommates were there. And I was like, oh, yeah, I stayed here last night. I just want to make sure I locked the door. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I just got here, but it was locked. I'm like, all right, cool. So then I went back to the bar, bro. And yeah, the obsession was just there, bro. But like, you know how they say your addiction's waiting for you, doing push-ups in the parking lot, like when you get sober, and when it comes back, it's just
Definitely.
ready to just give you that KO punch, bro. That's what happened to me, man. Dude, like within like 2 weeks, I had completely lost my mind, bro. I wasn't sleeping, you know. I stopped trying to drink and started smoking weed again. I started getting paranoid, and then through not sleeping, through smoking weed, through the alcohol withdrawals, all tied into one, dude, I started going through psychosis, bro. Like, dude, like my whole world just turned upside down. Like this had never happened to me before, bro. Like this was worse than like when I would do meth, bro, and stay up for
Mm-hmm.
3 days. Because that voice that like told me to like kill yourself or whatever, it wasn't as loud as it was this time, bro. Like now it was
Right,
like,
right, right.
dude, I was like paranoid, bro. Like I thought the whole world was out to get me, dude. I felt like this horrible person, bro. Like, dude, and then those suicidal thoughts started becoming like legit, dude. Like, like my mind was just so gone, dude. Like, just so like within 2 weeks, bro, just so gone, dude. That like my mind had just been flipped upside down, dude. And like I literally thought like suicide was the only answer for all this to be over, bro. And I don't. You mind if I get graphic on this part, bro? Because I think it could help a lot of people with the whole higher power God thing, man. You know, uh,
Travis, do your thing, man. This is your story.
sounds good, man. So yeah, dude, I had this huge Rambo knife in my closet, bro, and I was ready to end it all, dude. And this when I look back, when the fog finally cleared, bro, and I look back, dude, this is how I came in belief in God, bro, because I had this big Rambo knife, dude, and I was ready. I was done, man. And I grabbed it and I was going straight right here, like that.
Mm-hmm.
End it, bro. And dude, and I was like, this is it. Boom. And then, dude, I felt like a power, like a spiritual force stopped me, bro. Like I wasn't allowed to do it, dude. And I was like, boom. And like, dude, and that voice, like, so you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to end it all, man, or your life is over. And bro, like, dude, like, I don't know how many things I tried, bro, but nothing worked, bro. Taking pills, trying to run in front of cars, bro. Like, I was out there, dude, and luckily, like, I finally got 5150, dude. I finally was able, my cry for help was heard.
Mm-hmm.
And, dude, that's when the change has begun.
Do you feel
That's
like that's when you fully surrendered?
I mean, at least I thought, bro. Like, so that's when I stopped drinking. I'll get into this down the line, but that was my last. That was the like, dude, when I got 5150, and it's like when the fog cleared, it's like, dude, my roommate in the institution, bro, like he was like talking to me about God, bro. He was like a splitting image of me, bro. Addiction, drugs, alcohol. He struggled with suicide. You know what I mean?
So
But he, like,
you admitted yourself into an institution?
yeah,
Okay, let's talk about a little bit about that, if you can.
yeah. So, yeah, man. Like it was all bad, dude. Like, I was like, I ended up calling my mom and I'm like, hey, like you need to take me to the hospital. Like, Like, I was lucky that I was even able to make that call, bro. I had taken so many pills. I tried to do so many things, dude. Like, I'm like, and none of it's working. So I was finally like, hey, I need to go. But somehow I had that moment of clarity that was like, I need to go to the hospital.
Yeah,
Like some people like I'll hear about that, man. They'll make the call, like I didn't do that, bro. I tried to tough it out by myself, right? Like I didn't want to look for any help, you know. But finally, like I think, like when I hit that bottom, bro, and like nothing worked, like God just wouldn't let me pull the trigger. You know what I mean? That's when you know I'm like I need to go to the hospital. You know what I mean? And like I told them that I took all these pills, so they had to pump my stomach. You know what I mean? And yeah, and then yeah, I remember that. I just remember like, dude, like then, like I don't know, like if they gave me some drugs to like sedate me, man. But all I
yeah.
remember is like I was finally able just to relax, and I remember just that they had like an officer at my door, like a cop. You know what I mean? Like so, like I
How
don't
was your
know,
mom?
like
How was your mom?
dude, I don't even
Because
remember, bro. I was so gone at that point, bro. Like so, I remember
yeah, I
like
feel it.
it was weird. Like my friends would come and visit me. Like I guess like I could talk to my friends on the payphone. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I was able to talk to people, and my mom's always been like a loving mom. And
Hmm.
it's almost like she's a woman of faith. So I think she knows what God's doing in people's lives, right?
Right,
So
right.
I think her way of dealing with me was through prayer. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And
Yeah,
like
bro.
what I want to touch about the dude, my roommate, is like how we were a splitting image, but he had one thing that I didn't have. He had faith.
Ooh, talk that talk, bro.
You know what
I
I mean?
feel it. I feel it.
Bro, and dude, and that's when I had my spiritual awakening, bro, because I started looking back and like, dude, so like, like when I was dealing with the alcohol withdrawals, when I was in jail, bro, like, everyone says that prayer, God, if you're real, get me out of this, bro. And every
Hmm.
time
Hmm.
God got me out of that, the jail cell opened, bro, the shake stopped, bro. But you know what? I wasn't willing to accept, that God that was working all these miracles existed, bro. Like I was like, nah, I'm gonna go back to my old ways. Like I'm not
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, yeah.
And it's like, dude, so it's like, yeah, we're a splitting image, but he has something I didn't have. It was faith, bro. And I remember getting on my knees
Bro, I
every
love when you say that. I love when you say that, bro, because it's real,
day.
bro. That's real.
You
But
know,
yeah,
and
keep going, man.
anyone could have it, like it talks about that in the big book, bro. So like, like I see that you guys have this thing, but I don't think I could have it, right? It's like, but you can, and I got on
Yeah.
my knees that night and I was all like, instead of God, I know, or God, if you're real, get me out of this. My prayer had
Right?
changed to God. I know you're real. Take this away from me.
Mm.
I haven't had a drop of alcohol. Well, I mean, obviously building up to that. I don't know my exact day that I put the bottle down, bro, because I was so delusional and, going through psychosis and all that. So that day that I gave my life to God is when I had my original sobriety date, right?
Right,
That's
right, right.
that's the date that I use in the rooms, like because when I got out of there, I did well. I went to inpatient recovery. I wasn't feeling it, but it wasn't until they told me to go to like AA, like NA, you know what I mean? That I was
Uh-huh.
like, heard people's experience, strength, and hope, dude. It got me like it lit a fire in me, bro. Like I remember the first meeting I went to, I raised my hand. Said I was a newcomer. I got a sponsor. I did the deal, man. And yeah, dude, like it was crazy. Like it was like God had
Can you
put me. Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go, keep going.
I was saying, like, when I said that prayer, it's like God had put me on the path that I needed to be on.
Right, right.
And I remember too, dude, like, I remember having like all these epiphanies, like,
Hmm.
like when I was in that hospital, bro. Like, I remember like God was showing me all these times He was trying to get my attention. Like, I remember this
Right.
one time I was in the drunk tank, and they put this dude in my cell. It had to be like 4 or 5, 3 or 4 in the morning, bro. And he was all wired up on something. I thought he was just either on like meth or crack or whatever, dude. But he was pacing around the jail cell, and he was all like, God's trying to God's trying to tell us something tonight, man. He's trying to tell us to change our ways. You know what I mean? Like, and I
Yeah.
remember one time I was in a blackout, and these two, like, dude, like, I'm a big dude, like, I'm 6'4", right? And
Right.
like these blackouts where I'd be like yelling at the world, right? Like,
Hmm.
like howling at the moon, like that Ozzy Osbourne thing, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
two 5 foot nothing women came up to me, and they like their energy, just their presence, like calm me down. And you're like,
Hmm.
"Hey, you all right? Like, can we pray for you? Like they're like, hey, can we talk to you about God? Like, hey, it's not too late. Like, you could give your life to God and Jesus. And I was just like, no, I'm good. You know what I mean? But I just remember the power of their presence. That it was just able to bring me out of like my insanity, and I
Right,
was
right.
able to just like, but I was like, nah, I'm good off that God thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And yeah, it's a trip, bro. And and then I had another thought, like God's all like, man, everything you've been through is for a reason. I remember,
Yeah,
like everything, like our past is our greatest asset. Everything we go through is for a reason.
definitely, definitely. It forges you. It forges you, you know? Uh, and it's crazy how the presence of individuals who practice that faith, um, stay obedient to whatever they believe, right? And then when they come in your presence, bro, it's like they irritate our demons. I remember the first time I walked into the rooms, bro, and I seen these people smiling. I seen these people laughing, sharing their stories, and I'm over there miserable, bro. Like, what the fuck? You know? But really, bro, they're just irritating my demons. In reality, I want what they got, but they were in the same position that I was in when they walked into the rooms. And that's why, they always say keep coming back. Keep coming back, you know? So
Exactly.
when you first walked into the rooms, let's just share about the first time you walked into the rooms, um and kind of how how your recovery went from there. You know what I mean? And where you're at today, you know?
Sounds good, man. Yeah. So the first AA meeting I ever went to, man, was at 6:30 a.m. Can you believe that, bro? I'm never up that early, dude. Like even now, especially not in active alcoholism, but like even now, you know what I mean? I'm not up that
Yeah.
early. If I am, it's like a god shot. But anyway, so I'm up early, and I'm like, all right, let me get to a meeting, bro. But it was everything I needed to do. I went there, I raised my hand, and they hooked me up with a sponsor. Min gave me their numbers. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? And like I had this one dude, he would be like, "Man, call me anytime, bro." And I called him just to like say what's up, bro. But this dude would like talk to me for hours, bro.
Yeah,
Just about
yeah,
the
yeah.
heavy, dude. And I'm like, bro, like looking backwards, like, bro, I would never be on the phone this long with anyone. It's like, bro, where you at? Like, where you at? You know what I mean? That was it. So it was
Uh-huh.
crazy to like be on the phone with these men who were like, they were showing me the way. You
Right,
know,
right.
they were showing me how it works. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they were talking about how your life gets better. I was hearing this one guy, he shared, like I'm like, I relate to this guy, but there was something at the end, he's like, I got my life back together. I'm sober now. I got a job. I got
Right.
my own place. You know what I mean? These are just the material things, bro.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? But what it really is like we get that peace of mind back. You know what I mean? We get that serenity. You know,
Yeah.
but
And
sometimes
that's beautiful.
they don't
Go
tell
ahead.
you you got to maintain it.
Right.
Sometimes how they say faith without works is dead, bro. That's so real, dude. Like
Mm-hmm.
like so like we could into it later, man. But like I said, the reason I changed my date, man, is because I took my foot off the gas. You know what I mean?
Right. Right, right.
I stopped. doing the things that we do to maintain our sobriety, you know, and our spirituality. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm still a spiritual person, man, but I don't know. There was just something in me. I don't know if it was like that selfish self-centeredness, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, and I did go through a breakup and recovery. You know what I mean? And but yeah, something happened, dude, where I just wasn't on as much fire for recovery anymore, man. And I started getting that depression again. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
started, you know, feeling low, dude. You know, and I wanted to get raised up, so I started doing mushrooms, man. I started doing edibles and doing the California sober thing, thinking I was all right, man.
Yeah.
And but hey, you know, sometimes you gotta do that. I mean, you don't have to. I don't recommend it, but you know, that's what they say. You ever hear like when someone talks about like when they relapse, so like, yeah, I had to go out and do some more experimentation.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that.
Like that's what it is, bro. Like we like I know